Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Business Analysts Driving Corporate Culture, the 9 Levels of Value Systems. I'm your host, Deb Oliver, and on behalf of IIBA, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. You know, webinars are one way to continue to hone your skill set as a BA practitioner, but there are also reference resources such as the Babok Guide or our member-only online library, which contains hundreds of titles and videos related to business analysis work. At IIBA, we are all about uniting a community of professionals to create better business outcomes. And today is testament to that, with all of you joining us this afternoon to hear more about the 9 levels of value systems. And with that, I am very pleased to introduce today's presenter, Peter Gertsbach, Managing Director of Gertsbach Business Analysts. Peter provides business analysis consulting and training throughout Europe. And just a couple of interesting facts, he is one of the first CBAPs in Austria and the host of the first German business analysis podcast. Please welcome Peter Gertsbach.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's really great to be able to present here by this great people. Thank you. I was always interested in how to perform better business analysis, and it was about how to become a trusted advisor, because I think this is so important to gain trust with your stakeholders. So this is actually what this presentation will be about, and there is one quote that sums it up quite well, and this is: "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." This quote is attributed to Peter Drucker, and well, it just says, if you don't have a matching culture, it isn't really important what your strategy is, because it will likely fail. But the problem is how to define culture. What is culture? And today I want to present you exactly a way how to define culture in a company, and as a business analyst, how we can react to it. So I will give you 3 takeaways. The first one is I want to show you how values drive corporate culture. And I want to show you a way how to measure and analyze values. Well, and then I will present you findings from our research study. So this was performed together with IIBA and my company, and we digged really deep into how the cultural attitudes, how values of business analysts are, and what does this mean for our work as a business analyst. Well, what I call myself often a business analysis evangelist, and as you already pointed out, I was one of the first CBAPs in Austria, and I do much of my consultancy in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And well, I founded the IIBA chapter here, and we organize an conference every year in May. And I wrote a book, and there is a German podcast. So if you're able to understand German, you're very invited to join it. And there are many free episodes. Some are also in English, but mainly they are in German. But what I want to show you here is a picture of our annual BA camp. And at this conference, we invite experts from all over the world. And for example, we had at the very first year, we had Adrian Reed from the UK, and he had a keynote where he promoted the value of business analysis, which is very important, and I think what all the work IIBA is doing is all about. And the year afterwards, we had Yaqub Mohammed. You might know him by his name Yamo and the BA coach, and he told our attendees how they can advance their BA toolkit, which is equally important. Well, and we had Lynn Gervin. Lynn Gervin is also from the UK, and she stressed the point that it's important to not improve the business, not improve the IT, but the business. So the B in business analysis is what it's all about. And finally, last year we invited Rainer Krumm, and he said, well, if you want to change business, you also need to change and consider company culture. And this is what this talk will be about. Changing the company culture and even trying to understand company culture. And so together with Rainer Krumm, we did a survey in collaboration with IIBA and IIBA corporate membership. You know, the corporate membership benefits on different levels, so you can become a corporate member, and all corporate members have been invited to participate at this research study, and based with the tools of a system that is called the 9 levels of value systems. And well, in the upcoming slides, I will explain what this is all about. So, first point, how do values drive corporate culture? I would say there are many studies out there that says, well, complexity is increasing all the time. And therefore, change management is a very important thing to do. But we also need to adopt a positive attitude towards change. And one of the key factors about adopting a positive attitude is, well, considering the corporate culture. So corporate culture is a key factor for success if we want to be able to change ourselves and our companies and make them more profitable, better, in what way either. But the question is, what is corporate culture? I mean, it's something you can feel. If you go into an organization, you can feel the corporate culture quite after going through the door. And it's interesting that you can feel it, but it's difficult to measure it. And when I presented this this speech at the Building Business Capability Conference last year in Las Vegas, it was fun because Zappos, the CEO of Zappos, is quite based in Las Vegas, the company. And I like a quote he did. He says, "Our number 1 priority is company culture. And our whole belief is that if you get the culture right, most of the other stuff will just happen naturally on its own." And that's the magic of company culture, of corporate culture. Well, so have a look into this one. What is corporate culture? I think corporate culture is based on values. So it's about what is important to us. This is what values actually are. But it's not only this, it's not only what is important to us, it's also about what has proven successful in the past. And the problem with this one is that we tend to like things that worked in the past and say, well, it has worked and we shall do it in the future as well. But as you all know, future changes. And so this can become a problem. If you have a corporate culture and always stick to the things that have proven in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will have success in the future. Well, it's kind of obvious, but the problem what companies have is here they need a kind of an adaptive culture that makes it possible to change. And there is one interesting study I found by Kopp and Heskett, and actually they asked within an over 11-year period of time, they asked about companies that did and did not have this kind of an adaptive culture. And as you can see in the chart, those companies that have this adaptive culture, they have quite a big amount of revenue growth and also employment growth and stock price and net income growth. So I think it's really an interesting study that shows if you are able to change, if you have a company culture that is able to change an adaptive culture, you're more likely to succeed in whatever you're doing. So the question arises then, well, how can we measure and analyze values if they are so important? And I want to show you one system that performs it, that did it, and it was developed by Claire W. Graves. He was a US professor, and he developed a system describing human behavior. And the idea is that we all live in different life conditions and therefore have different ways of thinking. and sometimes the different times forces us to think differently. This is a picture of W. Clare Graves and with his book. And when someone asked him, well, what is the system about? He says, well, you can describe it as such. It's an emergent cyclical double helix model of adult biopsychosocial systems development. That's quite a difficult word, especially for a non-native speaker. And when someone asks him, well, isn't there something easier to tell this name of this theory? Well, no, there isn't, because that's what it is. So it's an emergent cyclical double helix model of adults, whatever. But I will try to describe you this model, which is really very interesting. And please be a bit patient, because I need to describe how this model works in order that you're able to understand and interpret the results of the study afterwards. But I will try to keep it short and simple. Actually, I will use a model derived from Clare Graves' model. It's called the 9 levels of value system. And Rainer Krumm, who had the keynote at our last conference, he developed this model and developed a system that makes it possible using surveys to measure the values of people. And the interesting thing I want to show you here is what you need to know is what I call coping mechanism. So actually, when I want to look at the values that I or any other person have, the 9 levels theory says that you develop your values by the time. So you may start on a lower level and then go in this spiral upwards. And this is what the model is all about. So there are in some 9 levels you can develop into. But the interesting thing is that it's not only about me. The interesting thing is that there is a world, an outside world. And the question is your values, do they correspond to those of the world? So there is no bad level like a low level or a good level like a high level. It's more important if there is a match between levels. So if you are living, for example, on the 4th level and the world that surrounds you is on another level, you have a mismatch here, well then you won't be happy, because you can't bring in your attitudes and the things you really can do well. So it's always interesting to see what are my values and what are the values of the world outside of me. So actually we have here 9 levels of different levels, and I go now shortly through these 9 levels. The first level, it's called the beige level, and it had all these levels have colors, so it's easier to remember them. And on the beige level, we are just another animal. So you can think of this one where we started when we evolved as humans. And in the beginning, there was only concepts like space, hunger, thirst, and there was no more concept. There was no time, there was no God, there was no universe, just live and try not to die. And we all lived on this level 40,000 years ago. So 40,000 years ago, we all lived on this very first beige level. Okay, then let's move up to the second level. The second level is called purple, and at this level, our values begin to evolve, and we, for example, start to respect taboos. We start to obey, and we value tradition. So this is where the first kind of where groups and tribes started to develop, and we as a human started to build them and introduce rituals and magical, mythical thinking. So this all started about 40,000 years ago due to climate change. So we needed to gather together in groups, and interestingly, there are still many people living on this level. This is nothing bad, it's just as it is. So let's see how on this level a typical organization looks like. And there are organizations where the second level is predominant. That means, for example, we have one big boss, one leader, maybe a family-owned business, often are on this level, and the clan offers protection for the employees. And there are things like, we have always done it that way, sorts of thinking prevailing. And now I would like to make a short, give you a short question, because I would like to know how people attending this very webinar today, how their values are. And currently we have more than 400,000 attendees, as I can see. That's really great, so thank you for joining. And I want to present you a question, and please try to answer it in a level from I strongly disagree with this sentence versus I strongly agree. And please keep in mind that there is no bad level. So even if you say, well, the second level, this sentence applies to me, that's okay, because we all have different levels in us. We have some purple part and we have some third, fourth, fifth level part in us, every human. And well, but that's enough talking. I'll show you this short survey. Wait a second. So please answer the survey in terms of, do you strongly disagree or do you strongly agree? About 50% has already voted. I will wait for more 10 seconds. So are you ready? I will close the survey now and show you the results. About 3/4 have voted. That's great. So thank you. Let's see the results. We have 49% that agree to this sentence, 29 that strongly agree, some that disagree, and some that strongly disagree. Okay, that's quite interesting. So at the current audience, the purple level is quite strong. But let's go to the next level. The third level, it's the red level. And on this level, people, they favor personal success. They want power. It's a more aggressive level. It's about winning, and sometimes winning above all else. The problem is in the further level, in the second level, in the purple one, well, there is only the family and there is no growth. And if you want to move forward, you have to move to the red level, which is a more egocentric level, but that's good. And actually every child has this phase in his, well, if you have a child between 10 and 15, you know very well that they can be sometimes aggressive in this phase, and this is an important phase in every human life. So at this level we value renown, respect, we have awe and fear, and it's about honor and dominance, and sometimes also about avoiding shame. And
excuse me, Peter, my apologies,
yes.
but we're still on the quick poll slide.
Okay. Are you on the red slide now? Ah, okay, sorry.
Perfect,
No?
thank you, yes.
Okay, yes, I have to click one button, I forgot about this. Okay, you have missed actually many things on this, it's just the red sign. More interesting is the next slide, because it's if organizations are mainly on this red level, they might be structured this way. So a very hierarchical organizational structure. For example, you can find hard-selling, multi-level marketing organizations prevailing on this red level, where the big boss decides what is to be done. And yeah, it's quite interesting. And organizations on this level can be very successful. And you notice if you have a salesperson from a very red organization, I'm sure you can imagine someone, they are very successful. They are indeed. So let's have a look again, one question. So please turn to your monitor. I will present you another question that is now for this red level. Okay, let's start it. You just have to keep pushing until you get what you want. Do you strongly disagree or do you agree? I will close the survey soon. 70% has voted. Thank you. So let's see the results. Okay, they agree. Still some agree, but there are also many that disagree. That's interesting. So now it's not that big favor towards this red level. Okay, and I will remove this, the results again, that you see my slides. Then let's go up to the next level. It's the fourth level. It's the blue one. And on this blue level, we have a reaction towards disadvantages of the previous level, so as the third level. And as I say, the third level is kind of aggressive. And how can we deal with this aggressiveness? We introduce rules and laws. So the fourth level is about fault and innocence. It's about loyalty. It's about order, compliance with rules. And it offers us protection. That's the great thing with the blue level. We have protection against the aggressive red ones, you could say. But we also need to comply with hierarchies, and it's about control, and we need to be patient sometimes. Especially, I think, if you now know what the blue level is, you also know companies, and maybe work in one companies that are very strong blue on blue values. This means sometimes you have to be patient if you want to change something, because it has to go up and down to the right person, and otherwise it won't work. So that's the blue level. And on this blue level, a typical organizational structure, well, it's like this one, so many different levels. And for example, if a person below here on this C rectangle wants to talk with a person on this D level and find a decision, well, it has to go up to C and to the big C boss, and then to boss A, and he will talk to the one from D. So you really need patience. Well, it's about are you for me or are you against me? It's black and white, good or evil. That's the blue level. But never question authority. So now I would like you to say how much do you agree or disagree with a sentence for the fourth level. So let's start the survey. Here it is. I value a clear and predictable environment. Do you disagree or do you agree? Okay, now it's much quicker. You know how it works. Thank you very much. Let's close the poll, and here are the results. Okay, there are again many people that agree to I value a clear and predictable environment, but there are still some that disagree and very few that strongly disagree. That's an interesting one. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. We enhance to the fifth level. As you might know, and I've already declared it and described it, a next level in our development is always a reaction to the previous model. And in this case, these values and the hierarchies of the blue level, well, it hinders sometimes that we develop, that we are more profitable, that we go quicker. And so the fifth level's reaction is to introduce, well, more prestige, status symbols, performance. We introduce entrepreneurial thinking. And the interesting thing is, on the blue level, we have rules. On the orange level, we start to interpret these rules. So we sometimes say, well, that's a rule, but in this case, I will not adhere to it because I think it's better for me or it's better for the organization. So that's interpretation of a rule. And that's becomes sometimes important if you want to succeed. So on this orange level, it's very productive, it's very result-oriented, and therefore a typical organizational structure is, well, we introduce processes. So we see it doesn't work all the time with hierarchies. We forget about the customer, and therefore we introduce a process, and this is always shown in an organizational structure as well. So it's more, we value more testing than only logical thinking, and this level is about experience and against bureaucracy. Well, then organisms are machines. And Here is my next sentence and a short survey. So what do you think? Rules are not imperative, but leave some room for interpretation. Do you strongly disagree, or do you strongly agree, or something in between? Thank you very much. I will close the survey. Last chance. Thank you. And here are the results. Again, we have here a large amount of people that agree, only some disagree, some strongly agree. So, well, we could say that many people are on this orange level in this audience. That's interesting to see. Then let's move forward. Next level is the 6th level, it's the green level. And as you might have noticed, we always, in these levels, we switch between a more me-centric versus a more we-centric level. So, and the green one is again more about us, about others as well. So, important concepts are here cooperation and participation. People on this level, they are open-minded towards the whole world. And we form communities, and one important aspect is consensus. So this is also a disadvantage of people and organizations on this level, because if we always try to find consensus, decisions may take very long. So nobody leaves the room unless we have settled and come to a conclusion. And this can take long. But it's about harmony, it's about fairness and tolerance, and about dialogue. So organizational structures on this level are often some matrix organizations. And as you know from them, it can be sometimes difficult to to have decisions, because not everybody agrees.
Excuse me, Peter. We just need to see that slide, please.
Oh, thank you again. I forgot to see this. Just click the button. Okay, so this is an organizational structure, a matrix structure, as you can see, where you have, well, one direct boss, but for example, for each process, a process owner, so a matrix organization. Okay, let's have our short survey for the green level. The question this time is, I like to discuss things thoroughly. Do you agree or disagree? Thank you very much. Let's close the survey, and here are the results. So again, we have here a large amount that agree and very few that disagree here. Okay, that's interesting. And I will remove the results here and go forward to this next level. It's the 7th level. It has the color yellow. And on this level, this is an interesting level, because all the levels so far, 1 to 6, they are also called the first rank. And on the 7th level, it's the 2nd rank. And it's the first level where, says the system by Charles Graves, it's the first level where we start to know that the previous levels are there and have advantages. So it's the first level that is able, people on this level are able to see the advantages of a blue, of a red, of an orange, of a green one, and is able to work with these advantages and with the disadvantages. So here we call it 2nd rank. And the values on this level is, well, it's about inspiration, it's self-reflection, so we reflect upon ourselves, and it's about lifelong learning and personal development. And we want to integrate knowledge of all different aspects, everything we can find. We value freedom, and we are very open-minded. And individuality is an important aspect here, because we want to have autonomy. So on this level, typical organizational structures, well, they are not organizations anymore. It's more about a network that spans through the whole country, and it's an international, a global thing. So it's a very modern approach to business, building interconnected entities and networks, and where authority is only situational. So let's see one questions of the 7th level. So one more question, please. The question is, I like to combine concepts and ideas from as many schools of thought as possible. Do you agree or disagree? Thank you. Here are the results. Oh, quite many agree, some strongly disagree, strongly agree, and very few disagree or strongly disagree. Thank you for participation. Then let's have one more level. The 8th level is the Torus level. And on this level, it becomes to get a bit fluffy and not so concrete, because here we value collective intuition. And we really work for the good of mankind. And we develop a kind of a spiritual consciousness. And aspects like, well, network intelligence is important, and sustainability, but not sustainability as some companies are forcing them just to have something to show in the annual reports. It's real sustainability and global reconciliation. And we see that the world is connected, and we really have to introduce systemic actions to make something work. And we really care about responsibility for the future of life at this level. So it all sounds great at this level, but it, as I told you, it becomes a bit, well, more fluffy, and maybe if you're thinking in business terms, that might not be relevant at all if it comes down really to business. But nonetheless, I want to tell you one question, show you one survey about this 8th level. The question is, what I think and what I do is driven by the collective unconscious. So, do you disagree or do you agree? And that's the last survey for today. Thank you very much. Let's close the survey. And the final results. Okay, there are quite a bit that disagree. I can understand it. Some agree, some strongly disagree. So it looks a bit other than the previous examples. Okay, so just to be complete, there is a 9th level. It has a color, it's coral. But the problem is, well, here it has to develop itself. So I can't really describe you what is after turquoise. It's coral, the number, okay. And we may live in a more egocentric level. We live with the knowledge that there are no limits. We are permeated by love and respect for all living beings. Well, let's state it that way. It's coral, and it might exist somewhere in the future. So you can think of the 9 levels system as an open-ended system. Okay, so I have now some questions for you. What do you think is, for example, this picture? When I presented this in Las Vegas, it was quite good because everybody was there. So what is gaming, gambling? For example, if you say, well, it was 5 times red, it must be black now. That's mythical thinking. So this is an example of the purple level, where you think, well, it's mythical thinking because it's plain statistics. And if you know the statistics, you won't gamble. Another example, morning sports. So with your knowledge, what would you think is this massive morning sport event that can be sometimes found in Asian countries? It's the blue. It's definitely a blue level. Well, it can be quite fun. Well, on the other hand, what do you think, what level should pilots be on? Would you value the red one who dares things, or the blue one who just follow rules? So I would definitely say I want to have blue pilots on this blue level. Okay, and another thing, what about playing golf? On what level do people usually play golf? Well, here it's interesting because here I would say it depends why you play golf. If you love nature and having a stroll on the green, well, that's maybe the green level. If it's about business, because you do business contacts there, then it's the orange level. So it's not really what you're doing, but more how you do it, because it's about values. Okay, so here are all levels in one summary, from beige up to coral. And as you can see, it's always a left and right. On the left-hand side, we have the we-related values, and on the right-hand side, we have the me-related values. So the right-hand side is a bit more egocentric, and it always changes between we-related and more egocentric me-related values. And the interesting thing is, if you want to change a whole organization, you can't let one step out. You have to do one step after the other. So if you are on a very red level and you say, well, orange would be great, you have to go through this blue level. That's one thing the theory says. It's otherwise not possible. Okay, so what did we, when we said we want to measure this, I told you that Rainer Krumm developed a survey system based on these 9 levels, and actually the questions, the surveys I showed you today are quite the same. We just introduced more questions. So the survey was based on I think it was 90 questions. So it was quite longer and to reflect more different kind of values. And well, that's the result. For example, you get out of this survey. In this case, in this example, it's a traditional mechanical engineering company. So you never have one predominant level. Okay, one level is always the predominant. In this case, it's the purple one. So in this organization, most people are at the purple level, but red is also important and blue as well. And for traditional mechanical engineering companies, these might make really sense, because they say, well, it's maybe family owned, so there is a clan. It's red because, well, you have to sell your things, and it's blue. Many engineers are blue because, well, you follow rules and you have to do it thoroughly and be precise, and the other levels are not so important. So this can be a very successful organization. Okay, so this is what is the result of such an evaluation, and well, we all did together now such an evaluation, and I did one for you, as I told you before. In our research study, I conducted together with IIBA and the 9 Levels Institute. We asked more than 23 corporate members who participated. It was conducted between March 2016 and May 2016, and in the end we had out of 21 countries and 10 different industries, more than 250 attendees. So it's great. Maybe even today we have much more attendees. So we might use this data. That's really great that you participated in this large amount. So that was the research study, and what I want to show you now is some information about who attended. Most participants were from English-speaking countries, so it was the United States and Australia and United Kingdom. And the fourth country is Austria, actually where I came from, so I put in my contacts as well. So that's why the little country Austria has quite a share in this study. Okay, another thing is about industries. We had about a quarter from transportation, followed by about a quarter from IT, and then healthcare, and then other industries, banking, energy, entertainment. Okay, and regarding age, more than half of all participants have been between 30 and 50 years old, which quite makes sense because we really addressed only business analysts, and you might not find that much below age of 20. So I'm not sure. This blue bar, it's quite too big, below 20, business analyst, I don't know, maybe. Okay, and this is the final, the most important slide of this webinar so far, because this is the results we got from asking these 248 business analysts. So the most important, the highest level is the green level, which is quite interesting, followed by the yellow level. And the smallest amount we had on this red level, so on the more aggressive one, if you remember. And this is quite interesting, especially if you remember what I said about the yellow level. Because on this yellow level, you are able to understand the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of the different levels. And sometimes, as a BA, if you are on this yellow level, you can help organizations that are on the blue level. Because typically, if as I told you here with this chart here, if the environment doesn't match with you, there is a mismatch, and you won't be happy. And if you start at an organization that is very red, you might not be motivated. But if you're a BA on the yellow level, you are able to understand this and say, okay, they are very red organization. Maybe they want to move to the next level, to the blue one, and I can help them because I can explain them. Well, it's good that you have power on the red level, but it might also be good to introduce a bit more rules. So let's do it together. And so it makes absolutely sense that it seems most BAs are very good on the green and the yellow level. Well, here are just some words, some adjectives about the different levels, about the green, the red, and the yellow level. So maybe you also now have a sense of what level is most appealing to you. And you're of course invited to see what level is most interesting for you. I want, as the last agenda here in this webinar, I want to show you some things that how you might use the knowledge about these 9 levels. So we have these 9 levels. It's interesting, but what to do with it? And one thing you could do with it is understand how you yourself, how you do learning and how you can motivate yourself. Because, for example, I just focus now on the green and the yellow levels because these are the most predominant for us BAs, as it seems. On the green level, motivation arises especially from affiliation to others and relationships. So, and I know this from me, for example, I like to have fellow BAs when I am on a project. This is an example why it's on the green level. And learning takes place through observation and modeling, and not always classical training. And on the yellow level, well, motivational factors, it's the searching for particular implications and solutions for a given problem. So this sentence is from the 9 levels theory, and it is a super description about BA. I mean, searching for particular implications and solutions for a given problem. That's business analysis. And learning on the yellow level, it's more self-motivated, and it's about it's a self-responsible activity. Maybe some of you are managers of BAs. Maybe you have a BA team, and the next slide is for you. It's about management and leadership. So you can use the knowledge about the 9 levels also to improve your management style. Because if you have business analysts on the green level, it's important that you know that they want to be accepted as individuals. And so the green managers is in fact an equal group member. And maybe you are as such, or maybe you have a BA group leader that acts like he's an equal group member, and that's very important if the BAs are on the mostly on this green level. On the yellow level, however, it's a bit more difficult to manage BAs because they will engage in projects they find appealing, they find interesting, and not always what you say as their manager. And well, yellow business analysts, they are independent and they only accept situational guidance. That's important to know if you want to manage, well, BAs on this level. So I'm at the end, not yet. I have some interesting data to show you. Maybe it's interesting for you because one thing was I asked also participants how much experience they have in business analysis, and these are just the charts for these questions. So I separated the entry-level BAs based on the new 4 certification models IIBA introduced last year. So entry level, 2 to 3 years, 5+ years, and 10 years plus. And as you can see in this chart, there isn't really a difference by experience level. So experience level does not have a large impact on the value system. And I expected there is some difference, but actually it makes sense because values is something, well, it's more about you, but not about how much experience you have working experience or experience as a BA. So I think that's quite interesting that it's more or less the same. Another thing I want to show you is, if you remember, I told you about this we-related and me-related levels. And if you sum up all the scores from the me-related levels and the we-related, you can see if the person is a bit more me or we-centric. And that's what we did. And we also compared it with our fellows from the project management department. So we didn't only ask BAs, we also asked project managers to participate, and that's the result. So the BAs are stronger at the V levels. And the PMs are quite equal, but if you compare them one-to-one, you can see that BAs are a bit more we-centric, and I think this makes just sense, because as a project manager, you sometimes have to make your project a success, and the other project can fail. It's okay if my project is successful. So as a project manager, you might have to be more me-centric. Well, on the other hand, as a BA, I care about the success of the whole company. So we have sometimes to think more at these we-centric levels. So this was quite an interesting aspect of this survey. Yeah, I'm finally at the end. No, there's one more chart. I also showed if there is some different levels between internal and external BAs. So are you employed, or are you self-employed, or maybe working for a consultancy and your client is so you're an external BA. And there isn't much difference, but a bit. So I would say the external BAs has stronger eye levels, so the red is a bit stronger, the orange is a bit stronger, also the yellow, versus the internal BA maybe have a more we-related attitude. And I think this it makes sense, because as a external BA, you sometimes have to always think about you and your contract as it will be renewed. So that's now really the last slide, and I hope you find it interesting. I hope you got to know the 9 levels and also an idea in which level you are, or maybe your organization. And I really want to say thank you. I provide a report. You can download them on the address given. You have to provide your email address, but you won't get any other mailings. It's just for the submission of this survey that contains the actual thing that I described here in this webinar in a written form. So I would be happy to stay in contact, and I would be very happy to answer many questions. I think we still have 10 minutes of time, and well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. We do have some questions, so I'm going to take up this 10 minutes. Can I ask you to flip back to that slide that you did on experience?
Yes, you mean this one?
Yeah, and I love this slide, and I love what you did in terms of matching it with the certification levels in the new framework. But what does that tell us then? I know it tells us that experience doesn't impact in terms of our values, but does it tell us that we can't change our values? or is there something else there that we should be thinking through?
As the system, the theory describes you can change values. You can, but it's difficult, and most things, well, are established when you are 20, 25 years old. So after this date, it usually doesn't change that much. But it can change, especially if the environment forces you to change. And this can also be instances like you're getting your first child. So then you move to this purple level to be able to give protection to this family level, and that's important. And maybe if they start becoming adolescent and make troubles, well, you will move to the blue level and introduce rules. So we always have to change our values, but well, some values, they stay the same, and I wouldn't say that you can change by 100% and put everything on the top.
Okay, so let's think about it in terms of an organization. There are some organizations that are spread out all over the world, and different units might have different levels of value. So the corporate culture is different, but yet you have to work with all these people in order to deliver that value for successful outcomes for the business. Yes. How do you manage that?
Whoa, this is where problems arise. I mean, there are people, so the model says if you are below yellow, you can't really see the advantages of the different levels. You just, for example, if you're on the blue level, you say, well, those aggressives on the red, they are silly, and then you look up, and in this kind of a model, you look up to the orange ones and say, well, they are so money driven. The only right way to do it is as we do it as this blue organization. So it introduces problems, and I think in this theory, and I mean it is a theory, it is a model, but I think it really helps to describe why change sometimes doesn't work as expected, and especially if you're merging two organizations. It can be a description why it might fail or why it might be successful. In the end, the theory says if you are on the yellow level, you're able to see the pros and cons of the different levels and really help them out. So if you're a BA working on merge projects or maybe on global projects, it might help you to have strong values on this yellow level.
So can we make the leap to say that based on your values, certain people are more attracted to the BA role? Can we make that leap?
Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure. I would say yes. I mean, if you are only strong on the purple and red level, you might not be a good candidate. For example, on the blue level, I think many BAs working in IT as an IT BAs, blue is a very good one because you have to be specific and document everything thoroughly. That's a good one. If you are more on an organizational level or maybe more on the enterprise level, it might be good to have an orange level where it's about profitability, or even at the yellow level and green level if you want to be able to understand that systems are interconnected and things are interconnected. So I would say from blue to yellow, they might be more attracted to BA role than other roles.
Now, is it possible to have a combination of more than one value system? So your dominant one might be a yellow, but you might have that secret red attached to you.
Actually, yes, that's possible, and that's also the reason why if you take one organization, it's always a mixture. Even if you take one person, so my chart looks similar like this one you're seeing right now, because we always have different values in us, and it also depends on our environment. So if I'm thinking about my business environment, my values are other than when I'm thinking about my family. So even in these circumstances, we have different value systems, but a combination is always possible. It's always there, but of course there's always one predominant and maybe one that it's the least important value for you.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to bring you back to one of the questions that you asked in the poll, and it was about, I think it was the blue, I like to discuss things thoroughly. And I think I can say that a lot of people that are the BAs on the call probably agreed, saying, yes, yes, I like to discuss things thoroughly. But how do we temper it when we think about the chart that you had in terms of how we move up the chain and having to have a conversation with, with someone that's a senior leader? How do we take that, our value is that we need to be able to do that, but we also need to be able to present our case to senior leaders who, quite frankly, don't really take the time or have the time to listen to something that is quite elaborate in discussion. So what are some things that we can do in order to distill our conversations but still get at being able to say that, we do discuss things thoroughly?
Yeah, I mean, this whole concept, this whole model, it is elaborate, and I needed more than 30 minutes to explain it, and now I think you know what it's all about. So it's not that easy to understand and to explain it in 5 minutes. I mean, I would say if you follow the rules given by this model, it might help you to get strategy. So this question, I like to discuss things, sorry, it's on the green level. And it's quite apparent when you have an organization on the green level that there might be a problem that meetings do never end. And so they discuss things thoroughly and never come to a conclusion. So you have to introduce a yellow concept. And one of these yellow concepts is open-mindedness. So it's okay to be different. It must be that way. The world there are different opinions, and we must not always settle to one. So a value from one level above always helps you to overcome problems in the previous level. And that's also true for green if you want to come from green to the yellow level.
Okay. You had that, I can see it right now because I can see your whiteboard behind you. And when you were talking about, the individual and the values, and I'm going to reference that, and then the organization that you're dealing with, and the idea is that your values have to be somewhat in line with the organization that you deal with. So when I think about the external BAs who will quickly come in, do you have any suggestions or recommendations that they should follow to quickly assess the value makeup of an organization that they're moving into and quickly learn how to adapt or resource accordingly?
Yes, usually I do. When I go into an organization, I just try to find out on which level it is, just to make it, to help me to react accordingly. And I think you don't need an elaborate tool like we did in this survey. You just can feel it. So for example, if you go into a small organization and you open the door and you see there is a big picture of the founder of this family-owned business, and you see his portrait all over the place, you are most likely in a purple environment. And so there are signs that help you see in which level you are. And if you talk to people, it becomes even more apparent. Because, well, the values, you can't hide those values. You feel it. And that's the way to go. And then you can say, okay, maybe if I'm in a blue organization and I have an idea, it's best to go to the direct superior and not to jump over to the big boss, because people on the blue level don't like it. So you have to adapt, and that's a good way to deal with it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's the perfect way to end the webinar. It is 1 o'clock. I want to thank you so much, Peter. It was great to hear from you and see you. Like many people have commented that they love to be able to see you. So thank you for bringing that approach and making this a very interactive webinar. And thank you to all of you who are able to join us today. And now, Peter, we do have a couple of questions that are still outstanding. And just so the people at the audience know that I will put these questions together and send them off to Peter, and we will get a response for you. But again, okay, thank you, everyone. Good. Thank you. And take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye for now.
Bye.